Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring the Eventide role-playing game. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review, featuring this survival horror post-apocalypse game that you can play with your group, or that you can play as a solo or co-op experience that is without a game master, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about the game world, the wastes. Let's start with the Cataclysm. How and why the world as we know it came to be changed forever has long been forgotten. There have been countless theories since the apocalyptic event known as the Cataclysm. It's likely that the Cataclysm wasn't just one thing, but rather a combination of many events and factors that led to the hellscape survivors drag themselves through until their dark, desperate lives are cut short. In other words, this Cataclysm is the sum of wars, diseases, natural and unnatural disasters. No one knows how long it has been since the Cataclysm or the time that came before. The memories of that world that once was have all faded into dust. To the people inhabiting the world of Eventide, this isn't a post-cataclysmic world, it's just the world that is, and the world that always was, as far back as anyone living in it can remember. The people, animals, places, and even the cycles of night and day have mutated beyond recognition. When it comes to the timeline, the exact chronology of where Eventide takes place in relation to our current existence is impossible for anyone to determine. There are a few clues we can look to that suggest it is in the far, far future. Most of the cities and buildings that exist as we know them today have crumbled into dust. The entire Eventide game takes place on a single island, known to its inhabitants as the New World. This island's shape and size doesn't correlate with any in recorded history, and was likely created through a combination of rising sea levels, thermonuclear disaster, shifting tectonic plates, and the relentlessness of unimaginable time passing. Occasionally, remnants of the past support the mythology that the island was once much more significant, possibly even a continent, as they wash up along the shore. Surrounding the island is an immense ocean that stretches uninterrupted as far as the eye can see, known as Oblivion. The ocean that surrounds the island is as dangerous as it is mysterious. The water is highly corrosive, and ingesting it will result in vomiting, intense burning, and a high likelihood of internal bleeding. The exact cause of this acidity is unknown, but its pungent smell suggests a chemical of an anonymous nature, perhaps even a natural consequence of the planet's inhospitable evolution. This ocean is the #1 factor that prohibits anyone from leaving the New World. Many have tried to build boats and sail away, but none have ever returned, their ships having likely been destroyed by the ocean and them meeting their horrifying end in the depths of the acidic waters. It is not uncommon to find human remains stripped of their flesh along the shoreline, those of unfortunate souls who either attempted a foolish escape or were dumped into the rough waters as a cruel and painful form of execution. Now let's talk about Tormenta, the megastorm. One consistent feature of the wasteland is the megastorm that plagues the island, known to the inhabitants as Tormenta. It is between 10 to 25 kilometers in radius, and constantly moves across the island in random and unpredictable patterns. The storm brings with it torrents of rain and hurricane-scale winds. The storm leaves immense damage in its path, but it is also one of the only sources of fresh potable water on the island. The storm moves slowly, and it may be months or even years before it revisits the same spot, so inhabitants clamber to stockpile the fresh water. Occasionally, it may falter in size, but it never dissipates completely, instead swelling with a fury and vengeance equally majestic and terrifying. When it comes to the weather in the New World, it is extreme and unforgiving, as the landscape itself. The majority of the time the weather is harsh, unrelenting sunlight. Daylight lasts for approximately 18 hours before plunging suddenly into the deep inky night for the remaining 6 hours of the day. The exact reasons for this are unknown. Some mystics theorize that it is the sun god punishing the people of Eventide for their sins. The exact duration of day and night fluctuates by an hour either way when shifting between the summer and the winter seasons. Concerning language, it has evolved over the centuries, as people from different cultures and historical backgrounds began to amalgamate. There is no formal written language in the New World. Certain tribes and smaller groups may have developed their own dialects of the tongue, but they can still usually be deciphered and understood by most. The world is littered with hazards that can make any wanderer's lives even more challenging and treacherous. The island is also littered with hot pockets of radiation, the scars of a time long since forgotten. Concerning currency and trade, the currency of the New World is small pieces of sea glass known as shards. In addition to shards, bartering is a massive form of trade. Many wanderers would instead trade for precisely what it is they need, rather than deal with shards, which are rare and extremely valuable. When it comes to transportation, while most wanderers travel the wastelands on foot, there are various motorized vehicles in use throughout the New World. The most common form of motorized transportation is the motorcycle. The number one fuel source in the New World is the New Black Sea. Many wanderers have no other option than to traverse the vast wastelands on foot. When it comes to religions, there are 3 reasonably large religions on the island, 3 cults, with hundreds of followers: the Oblinites, the Abegites, and the Mechanites. These 3 cults have been in constant conflict with one another since not long after their inception. The Oblinites worship the ocean, seeing it as a powerful and vengeful god. The Abegites worship the Queen of Dusk in a fanatical manner. They see her as their salvation and their hope in these dark and desperate times. The Mechanites are worshippers of the mythology and technology of the old world. They believe these remnants, mysterious artifacts from the time before the Cataclysm, hold immense magical power and have dedicated themselves to unlocking the mysteries of these strange relics. Concerning tribes, hundreds, possibly even thousands of tribes have sprung up all across the island. Some are small, containing only a handful of members. Other larger tribes can have as many as a few thousand members. While most of the New World's inhabitants have held on or created anew some semblance of civilization, there are also those who very quickly abandoned all pretense of civility and descended into feral savagery very soon after the Cataclysm. These groups are known as feral wanderers, and there are hundreds of these small packs of savages wandering the wildlands. Generally, these packs of feral wanderers keep to the more isolated regions of the island, feeding on wildlife or each other. Let's talk about Signal X. Those lucky enough to find a radio capable of receiving a signal during their travels will soon discover that only one signal is not purely static. It has been dubbed Signal X and broadcasts for an hour at dawn and another hour at dusk. The broadcast consists of a computerized voice spurting out what seems like random numbers, interspersed with the sound of sirens blaring. Occasionally, voices can also be heard, talking in the background, but the language they speak is unfamiliar to those who wander the wastes. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about different places in the wastes. I really like the setting. It's quite simple to understand, and yet there are many mysteries and potentially horrifying situations related to the environment, to the people that you can encounter, the beasts and monsters within as well. Is there any way to escape the island? What sorts of technology will you find if you know where to look? There are many mysteries to come. These are just a handful of them, just the tip of the iceberg. Thank you for watching this part of the review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending drive-thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.